His words here ended, but his meek aspect silent yet spake, and breathed immortal love to mortal men, above which only shone filial obedience. As a sacrifice glad to be offered, he attends the will of his great Father. Admiration seized all heaven, what this might mean, and whither tend wondering, but soon the Almighty thus replied. O thou in heaven and earth, the only peace found out for mankind under wrath! O thou my sole complacence! Well thou knowest how dear to me are all my works, nor man the least, though last created, that for him I spare thee from my bosom and right hand, to save, by losing thee awhile, the whole race lost. Thou, therefore, whom thou only canst redeem their nature, also to their nature join, and be thyself man among men on earth, made flesh when time shall be, of virgin seed by wondrous birth. Be thou in Adam's room, the head of all mankind, though Adam's son. As in him perish all men, so in thee, as from a second root, shall be restored, as many as are restored, without thee none. His crime makes guilty all his sons. Thy merit imputed shall absolve them who renounce their own both righteous and unrighteous deeds, and live in thee transplanted, and from thee receive new life. So man, as is most just, shall satisfy for man, and be judged and die, and dying rise, and rising with him raise his brethren, ransomed for his own with his own dear life. So heavenly love shall outdo hellish hate, giving to death and dying to redeem. So dearly to redeem what hellish hate so easily destroyed and still destroys, in those whom win they may, accept not grace, nor shalt thou by descending to assume man's nature, lessen or degrade thine own, because thou hast, though throned in highest bliss, equal to God, and equally enjoying godlike fruition, quitted all to save a world from utter loss, and hast been found by merit more than birthright, Son of God, found worthiest to be so by being good. Far more than great or high, because in thee love hath abounded more than glory abounds, therefore thy humiliation shall exalt with thee thy manhood also, to this throne. Here shalt thou sit incarnate, here shalt reign, both God and man, Son both of God and man, anointed universal King. All power I give thee, reign forever, and assume thy merits. Under thee as head supreme, thrones, princedoms, powers, dominions I reduce. All knees to thee shall bow, of them that bide in heaven or earth, or under earth in hell. When thou, attended gloriously from heaven, shalt in the sky appear, and from thee send the summoning archangels to proclaim thy dread tribunal, forthwith from all winds the living, and forthwith the sighted dead of all past ages, to the general doom, shall hasten such a peal shall rouse their sleep. Then all thy saints assembled, thou shalt judge bad men and angels, they arranged shall sink beneath thy sentence. Hell, her numbers full, thenceforth shall be forever shut. Meanwhile the world shall burn, and from her ashes spring new heaven and earth, wherein the just shall dwell. And after all their tribulations long, see golden days, fruitful of golden deeds, with joy and love triumphing, and fair truth. Then thou thy regal scepter shalt lay by, for regal scepter then no more shall need. God shall be all in all. But all ye gods adore him, who to compass all this dies. Adore the Son, and honor him as me. No sooner had the Almighty ceased, but all the multitude of angels, with a shout loud as from numbers without number, sweet as from blessed voices uttering joy, Heaven rung with jubilee, and loud hosannas filled the eternal regions. Lowly reverent, towards either throne they bow, and to the ground, with solemn adoration, down they cast their crowns, inwove with amaranth and gold, immortal amaranth, a flower which once in paradise, fast by the tree of life, began to bloom. But soon, for man's offense, to heaven removed, where first it grew, there grows and flowers aloft, shading the font of life. And where the river of bliss through midst of heaven rolls o'er Elysian flowers her amber stream, with these that never fade the spirits elect bind their resplendent locks enwreathed with beams, now in loose garlands thick thrown off the bright pavement that like a sea of jasper shone, empurpled with celestial roses smiled. Then crowned again their golden harps they took, harps ever tuned, that glittering by their side like quivers hung, and with preamble sweet of charming symphony they introduce their sacred song and waken raptures high. No voice exempt, no voice but well could join melodious part. Such concord is in heaven. The Father first they sung, omnipotent, immutable, immortal, infinite, eternal King, the author of all being, fountain of light, thyself invisible amidst the glorious brightness where thou sittst, throned inaccessible. But when thou shadest the full blaze of thy beams, and through a cloud drawn round about thee like a radiant shrine, dark with excessive bright, thy skirts appear, yet dazzle heaven, that brightest seraphim approach not, but with both wings veil their eyes. Thee next they sang of all creation, first begotten Son, divine similitude, in whose conspicuous countenance without cloud made visible the Almighty Father shines, whom else no creature can behold. On thee impressed the effulgence of his glory abides, transfused on thee his ample spirit rests. He, heaven of heavens, and all the powers therein, by thee created, and by thee drew down the aspiring dominations. Thou that day thy father's dreadful thunder didst not spare, nor stop thy flaming chariot wheels that shook heaven's everlasting frame, while o'er the necks thou drovest of warring angels disarrayed. Back from pursuit thy power with loud acclaim, thee only extolled, son of thy father's might, to execute fierce vengeance on his foes. Not so on man. Him through their malice fallen, Father of mercy and grace, thou didst not doom so strictly, but much more to pity incline. No sooner did thy dear and only Son perceive thee purposed not to doom frail man so strictly, but much more to pity inclined. He to appease thy wrath and end the strife of mercy and justice in thy face discerned, regardless of the bliss wherein he sat, second to thee offered himself to die for man's offense. O unexampled love, love nowhere to be found less than divine. Hail, Son of God, Saviour of men, thy name shall be the copious matter of my song henceforth, and never shall my harp thy praise forget, nor from thy Father's praise disjoin. Thus they in heaven above the starry sphere their happy hours in joy and hymning spent. Meanwhile, upon the firm opacious globe of this round world whose first convex divides the luminous inferior orbs enclosed from chaos and the inroad of darkness old, Satan alighted walks. A globe far off it seemed, now seems a boundless continent, dark, waste, and wild, under the frown of night, starless, exposed, and ever-threatening storms of chaos blustering round. Inclement sky, save on that side which from the wall of heaven, though distant far, some small reflection gains of glimmering air, less vexed with tempest loud. Here walked the fiend at large in spacious field, as when a vulture on Emmaus bred, whose snowy ridge the roving Tartar bounds, dislodging from a region scarce of prey, to gorge the flesh of lambs or yeanling kids. On hills where flocks are fed, flies toward the springs of Ganges or Hydaspes, Indian streams, but in his way lights on the barren plains of Sarikana, where Chinese drive with sails and wind their canny wagons light. So on this windy sea of land the fiend walked up and down, alone, bent on his prey, alone, for other creature in this place, living or lifeless, to be found was none. None yet, but store hereafter from the earth, up hither like aerial vapors flew, of all things transitory and vain, when sin with vanity had filled the works of men. Both all things vain, and all who in vain things built their fond hopes of glory or lasting fame, or happiness in this or the other life. All who have their reward on earth, the fruits of painful superstition and blind zeal, not seeking but the praise of men, here find fit retribution, empty as their deeds. All the unaccomplished works of nature's hand, abortive, monstrous, or unkindly mixed, dissolved on earth, fleet hither and in vain, till final dissolution wander here. Not in the neighboring moon, as some have dreamed, those argent fields more likely habitants, translated saints, or middle spirits hold betwixt the angelical or human kind. Hither of ill-joined sons and daughters born, first from the ancient world those giants came, with many a vain exploit, though then renowned, the builders next of Babel, on the plain of Sennar, and still with vain design new Babels had they wherewithal would build. Others came single. He who to be deemed a god leapt fondly into Etna's flames, Empedocles, and he who to enjoy Plato's Elysium leapt into the sea, Cleombrotus, and many more too long, embryos and idiots, eremites and friars, white, black, and grey, with all their trumpery. Here pilgrims roam, that strayed so far to seek in Golgotha him dead, who lives in heaven, and they who to be sure of paradise, dying put on the weeds of Dominic, or in Franciscan, think to pass disguised. They pass the planets 7, and pass the fixed, and that crystalline sphere whose balance weighs the trepidation talked, and that first moved, and now St. Peter at heaven's wicket seems to wait them with his keys, and now at foot of heaven ascent they lift their feet, when lo, a violent crosswind from either coast blows them transverse 10,000 leagues awry into the devious air. Then might ye see cowls, hoods, and habits, with their wearers tossed and fluttered into rags, then relics, beads, indulgences, dispenses, pardons, bulls, the sport of winds. All these upwhirled aloft, fly o'er the backside of the world far off, into a limbo large and broad, since called the paradise of fools. To few unknown, long after, now unpeopled and untrod, all this dark globe the fiend found as he passed, and long he wandered, till at last a gleam of dawning light turned thitherward in haste. His travelled steps far distant he descries, ascending by degrees magnificent, up to the wall of heaven, a structure high, at top whereof but far more rich appeared the work as of a kingly palace gate, with frontispice of diamond and gold embellished thick with sparkling orient gems, the portal shone inimitable on earth, by model or by shading pencil drawn.